When it comes to contracts, you might be wishing or hoping that there was some software out there that could automate elements such as your document creation, issuing of contract templates, approvals, signatures, things like that. And I'm here to tell you that this technology does exist, and it's certainly something you should consider, especially if you have procurement and legal teams who are dealing with contracts every single day related to your vendors. So let's cover 3 ways we can automate contract documentation to make huge efficiencies for our businesses. Step 1, once you have a process mapped out, and that is a key part of all of this, you do need to have some sort of contract review, signature process that is well defined, easy to visualize. But once that's mapped out, you should look to digitalize that process, which effectively means putting it into software. So with Gatekeeper, we create digital contract intake, review, negotiate, and signature processes. And that would just typically be one process within our Kanban workflow engine. And what that looks like then is various different phases depending on where you're at. So phase 1 would be intake, phase 2, review, phase 3 would be negotiate, phase 4, approvals, phase 5, more than likely signature, phase 6, create a finalized contract record. But one thing to consider is when you have a manual process, so when it's not digitally created, you need someone to move the contract along every single phase, either by email, communication, a Slack message. But when it's digital, we can remove that. We have something called AutoActions, which I honestly love to use. For example, as soon as a form comes through from someone in the business that a contract needs to be reviewed, it will already create an in-progress contract record. Depending on what type of vendor we may be dealing with or what category, we could potentially as well use these auto actions to issue a contract template directly to the vendor for them to review and send back to us with any red lines. And all of this is dealt with through the workflow engine. It's quite genius in some ways, because I can tell you after reviewing like 200 plus contracts over the last couple of years, it can get really tiresome when you're doing everything via email. You're trying to keep on top of everything, track everything, and having these efficiencies built directly into my digital processes when I used Gatekeeper made all of the difference. And then consider this, we've reviewed the contract, we've approved everything, the contract record's created, it's linked instantly to a vendor record. So we've got that almost like that parent-child relationship there, with the vendor having many contracts against it. So once everything gets to that final phase, that everything's done phase, Gatekeeper will just create the contract record, finalized record, all the documents that have been collected along that way are there. We have the final contract version there, signed for everyone to see on the front page of the contract record. So no one has to trawl through loads of records and data just to find a contract. It's quite wonderful. One way you can use document automation with contracts is to self-serve, high volume, low value work, such as non-disclosure agreements. All you need to do is create a non-disclosure agreement template that has been signed off by your legal team, your general counsel, upload that, and then anyone in your business can have a personalized link that they can send to any vendor that they need a non-disclosure agreement with. It will instantly send them out that non-disclosure agreement. The vendor completes a few pieces of information. Gatekeeper will create a record of that vendor and that contract from the information that is put in. And if the vendor isn't happy to sign that non-disclosure agreement as is, they can just return the draft with their changes, and that will go straight through to your legal team or your contract management team. It just means that your legal team doesn't have to be involved in the really admin heavy piece of just sending out a non-disclosure agreement to every single vendor, especially when non-disclosure agreements kind of go one way. They either get signed as is, or for some reason with those agreements, they take forever to get over the line. And you could use a standardized non-disclosure agreement, such as the one NDA, which I've used in the past. I'm a big fan of this to speed up this process. So these are some ways that allow you to save time so that your legal teams and even your procurement teams can focus on far more valuable work. Before you go, check out this video just here. This video is all about what is vendor onboarding and how you can use Gatekeeper to make this process far easier for yourselves. See ya.